Since people are emigrating from Africa to save themselves, why can't we just lift up entire herds, and bring them to, let's say, a sanctuary in Texas or somewhere? I'm being very serious about it. Or if Texas doesn't work, why not replace the human population in Berkeley, Oakland with elephants? It would be a safer environment for the average human if we had elephants in Berkeley than liberals. At least I think so. Warnings of global outbreak of Black Death as plague continues to spread. Oh, don't tell any of that to the CDC. They're busy studying other things. Health experts are warning there is something different about a new Black Death outbreak spreading across the world. Now, you should understand that the words Black Death unto themselves may be offensive to some and could make certain people feel unwelcome and uncomfortable, but they have not yet gotten around to revising the name of that disease. But you see, in the 1300s, an estimated 50 million lives were lost as a result of the Black Death. Excuse me for saying Black Death again. But some 1,300 new cases of the pneumonic plague, which is transmitted by air, have now been confirmed. And now the deadly disease has spread into more African countries after taking root in Madagascar. Countries affected with the Black Plague include South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Comoros, the Seychelles, Mauritius, and Reunion. Not a good story altogether because, as I have told you over the years as a trained epidemiologist, when an epidemic is spread so easily by air, it usually spreads rapidly and will wipe out an awful lot of the human population. God tried a few other times in the past, but he was thwarted in his attempt to cull the herd, and now he's back, and this time with Black Plague. And this, my friends, is a product of liberalism and the open borders. See, if we had firm borders. Do you know why borders were originally created? Suffering the open borders pox that is plaguing not only America but all of the West, which is in a suicidal spiral.
Serious?
And that is the rest of the story. I'll be right back. Join the Savage Nation. Call now 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage. The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Red meat. That's enough of this talk. Okay, I'm getting a headache from it. You want red meat? I'm going to give you red meat in a minute. If you're calling about New York when it was dirty in the 70s, or the idiots in the NFL, stay on because I'm going to take your calls on that. An article just came out. Paul Manafort judges who are Deborah A. Robinson and Amy Berman Jackson. Are you ready for this? You better hang on to your seat pants. The lawyers, both of them, are extreme liberals who supported Hillary Clinton. The veteran judge that Paul Manafort and his associate Rick Gates will appear in front of today, well, they're appearing probably right now, has presided over a list of big-name defendants. You ready for this? And after she gets through with them, the case will be handed over to an Obama-appointed judge who donated $1,000 to Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign. You ready for the rest of the story? U.S. District Magistrate Judge Deborah A. Robinson, the preliminary judge, has overseen cases involving former Washington, D.C. Mayor Barry and NBA player Allen Iverson. Are you ready for more? Here it comes. She was sworn in as a magistrate judge in 1988 and is a graduate of Morgan State
Nicole hasn't cast that check yet for the picture.
School of Law. She is the one who
what do I do?
From $10,000 to $50,000 for Sandy Berger, a former national security advisor to President Bill Clinton.
When was she supposed?
No, the school's got to cash it. She's already gave the check to the school. The school's got to cash
so
it.
So they may be delaying it. All right. Okay.
All right.
Guilty to a misdemeanor charge of mishandling classified information. Now, you know what I know. That Sandy Berger was arrested for stealing classified information in his underwear and socks out of the National Archives. Anyone else that did it would go to jail for life.
Made it payable
so
to her.
Deal. She boosted the fine from
school.
$10,000 to $50,000.
School.
Berger
You
was
gave her a
reviewing
blind cut?
Clinton era documents
No, I
connected
gave
with the work of
I
the
gave her
September
the
11th
amount.
Yeah,
Mom put it on there. Mom did it.
documents
Oh,
up and
okay.
put
She
them
gave it in the
trash.
She gave it in the
Are you
call.
listening to me? He didn't put him in the trash. I know the story well. He put him in his socks. That's why he was called Sandy Socks Berger. So they settled on a $10,000 fine for this kind of crime in front of Judge Robinson, who showed how fair she was by upping it to 50 grand. It gets even worse. This Judge Robinson presided over the trial of Louis Scooter Libby, an ex-White House aide who was convicted of lying to authorities and obstructing the probe of an 03 leak of a CIA operative's identity. Libby, who really did nothing really, was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison, but had his sentence commuted by President George W. Bush. So it's a kangaroo court from the get-go. The judges are the kind of judges you would have seen in the Soviet Union, in my estimation. They already shopped this case of Manafort and the other one to two judges who would have been very happy in the Soviet Union in the 1930s doing the bidding of Mr. Beria, the head of the secret police in the Soviet Union. That's the world that we live in. That's the world that we live in.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Not there
She
for
wants war with Russia, this
responsible,
moron.
reasonable members of Congress to talk about impeachment.
This woman's insane, by the way, and a vicious, crazy human being who is dangerous for every American out there. She wants war with Russia. That's all she wants, Maxine Waters. This is what she's using to appease to her moronic base. But it gets worse. It just came out moments ago who the judges are who are going to be reviewing this indictment. Are you ready for this? I told you who she was, Jackson. Are you ready for this? Earlier this year, this Judge Jackson, so-called, a Harvard Law graduate, dismissed the lawsuit brought against Hillary Clinton by relatives of victims of the 2012 Benghazi attack. This prize judge, Jackson, ruled that Hillary Clinton neither enabled the attack by communicating through her private email server, nor did she defame the victims' families in the aftermath, according to the Washington Times. So Jackson, the lawyer, the judge rather, who is going to be crucifying Manafort and others, spared Hillary Clinton under some double talk. It should be noted that this Judge Jackson also contributed $1,000 to Clinton's 1992 Democratic presidential campaign, and wait, while previously working at a law firm, represented former Democratic Congressman William J. Jefferson in a corruption trial. Now, I remember that trial. William J. Jefferson, looked it up very carefully. That former Louisiana congressman was sentenced in 2009 to 13 years in prison on bribery charges after being caught hiding $90,000 in cash in his freezer. Did you know any of this? So this is the same judge who oversaw these cases, who is now going to oversee the case of Jackson. Paul Manafort judges, who are Deborah A. Robinson and Amy Berman Jackson. A fabulous article with their color drawings of them by artists of Deborah Robinson, so-called judge, and U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson. These are lifers. They sound to me like the type who screams that they have PTSD when pulled over for a speeding ticket and threaten the cop. That's the world we're in. Let's take some calls on other topics in the Savage Nation. Phone number is 855-400-7282. Steve on WABC, are you still there? Welcome to the program. What's your topic?
Thanks for having me. I lived in Midtown in the late 80s and 90s. I was on 44th between 5th and 6th when it was still really rough and had all the foreign shops and everything else. And I'll tell you, that city had more heart and more soul back then than it does now. Because it was real, it was gritty, and
I mean, you don't like a Starbucks on every corner and a Cuisinart store next to a Starbucks, and next to a Cuisinart store another Starbucks, and next to that another store selling the same stuff that you saw 15 feet away? What's wrong with you?
Look, you go outside anytime after the sun supposedly goes down, you have no idea what time it is. It's like 24-hour sun there. It's so damn bright. There's no...
What do they actually sell in New York on 42nd Street now that all of the dirt and crime has been cleaned up? What's there?
It's one story after the other. It's salvations, and it's you name it, Starbucks, it's Disney, it's this, it's that.
So it looked like a mall, like any mall in America. So you like the grit, the grime, do you actually like the dirty New York better?
You know what it was, though? As much as there was the grit and grime, there was for every one of the porn shops and everything else, there were still the little churches and the little places where you could go in there, you know, for the salvation, for the homeless guys and everything else. There was real spirit there. Now it's...
Oh, wait, so are you into religion when you say that? Did you actually go to those churches?
Look, I can't argue. I'm a Catholic who's wrestling with a 9-year-old who thought that his First Communion meant no more CCD, and just in the realization he's got another 5 years to go. So.
So you're a young father.
Yeah.
But you got a good. See, the main thing is you got a sense of humor, which is going to save you and your son.
It's the important thing, because he's already asking questions saying, Daddy, how is it we all came from the same person? And it's not like, look, you gotta take a look.
Oh, children are smart. No, they ask questions that can shake you to your core. And the answers are hard to find. Again, I'm going to tell you, there's a story in my book, God, Faith, and Reason, which I'm going to send you, about my lawyer, Danny Horowitz, and his 2 young children, and what his 4-year-old daughter asked him about God. You say to children, God is this, and they say, well, what does that mean? And they go, da-da-da-da-da. There's almost no answer at the end of the day, is there?
No, and trying to explain the idea of taking something with faith, it is much harder than saying it's something tangible and able to say, well, it's because of this and this. And he will not let me go anytime that I try to say, well, you just have to believe.
See, when you try to steer a child to faith, they become more reasonable than we are.
Look, he's more reasonable and rational than most of the people I know at this point in life.
Well, it's a challenge, and it's why a lot of children stop believing in anything, because they can't get the most fundamental questions answered straight. They go off the rails because they don't know what to believe in.
He asks me when he sees the news and sees, Daddy, all Muslims bad. Is ISIS bad? Are all these bad? If we all believe in God, why are they bad? And I have to explain them.
An address, and it doesn't have to be your home address, because I got one more thing to say before we go. And like I said, Brian is not responsible. I don't think after what I've just heard he's mentally responsible, but Brian's not responsible for this. The podcast, MLW, all the places you download your podcast, they're not responsible. But the Table for Three, as I mentioned, was the second most watched WWE Network show of the week, behind only the pay-per-view. And one of the things that, boy, if you think he went crazy, you should have seen the unedited version, because we spent more time on him. But old Shitstain, the Archbishop of Callenberry, Vince Russo, went crazy. He just couldn't, and see, the reason why he went crazy is not only did Bischoff and I, once again on worldwide television, tell everybody what a fucking moron he was, but the WWE, the company that he begs and pleads to have a job with again, begs to bring him back, and constantly emailing Vince McMahon, and constantly contacting him, saying, oh, Vince, I can save you, oh, Vince, I can save you. They took that opportunity as soon as we mentioned his name to put up non-flattering pictures of his fucking ugly ass. So, Russo went crazy, and he was on again making all these comments and all these well, they ought to say it to my face. They ought to say it to my face, because that's every time that I speak about Vince Russo, he's always trying to deflect my comments or tell people, and I don't really mean it. I just say stuff like that because I make money off of it. And I've said that I don't make money off knocking Vince Russo. It's my hobby. I do it for enjoyment. I make a lot of money, which is more than I can say for that unemployed fucking loser. And then he tried to say, well, I just can't believe it. He can't be telling the truth, because I can't believe anybody would hate somebody like that just over wrestling. Because that's what Vince is about the wrestling business. It's just a joke. Just like these jocks and wannabes that do play wrestling. He can't believe anybody would hate somebody that bad over just wrestling, because he doesn't take it seriously. He never has. He's part of the reason why that this business is in this shit shape. And then finally, all that didn't work, then he kept
Which they did.
And a lot of her top talent would jump ship
Which they did.
if they found out that she had anything to do with that miserable sack of snake feces.
Dashing Angel, man. You got some skill, I see.
And then he said things like, well, I don't have any balls. Cornette doesn't have any balls. Why don't you grow a set? Because you won't say this to me face to face. So here, we've got a sad, desperate, unemployed, mentally unstable goof that had to move from Colorado to Evansville, Indiana, where his wife's family is from. That's his wife's hometown. And apparently he lives in his in-laws' basement, I guess. Maybe that's why it cuts such a fucking, strikes such a nerve. When he talks about the internet marks and the website journalists like Dave Meltzer and Mike Johnson that live in their parents' basement, or maybe it's because they're not only the ones that accuse him of being a liar and a fraud, but they prove it.
God
time and
damn.
time again. But Vince Russo has said, I'm a coward. I'm not a man unless I will say these things to his face. Like we can somehow debate this out and all walk off and be friends into the sunset. Well, he said anytime, anywhere. Well, Vince, I got an offer for you, Vince Russo, and I want all your little stooges to listen real close, and I want them to tell you. I want them to play this for you, because I want you to hear it. You say you want to meet me face to face, and you want me to say all these things to you in person instead of behind your back. Well, we ain't going to do it on a podcast. We ain't going to have a debate. Here's the deal. You send me a date and a time and an address. It doesn't have to be your home address because I know you don't want me to know where
Come
you
on,
live,
motherfucker,
you
pick
probably
me
do live in
up.
your in-laws' basement since you're an unemployed failure and you're toxic and nobody wants to have anything to do with you. And every wrestling promoter, every great wrestling veteran of the last 20 years that's ever drawn any money has nothing but bad things to say about you. Bret Hart said you ought to be hung in a parking lot. I know you don't want me to know where you live, so send me a date and a time and a neutral address, and I'll come to you. You don't have to come to me. You're in Evansville now. It's not that far away. I'll come to you.
God
Because I know
damn.
you don't have money for gas, Vince. Being as you're in such a miserable state, you're living on food stamps, your wife's probably ready to divorce you.
I swear, dude, I'm gonna get you down and I'm not gonna fucking stop, dude. You ain't fucking doing shit.
I'll come to you. Make it a public park, maybe somewhere out of the way, somewhere where there won't be too many people to intervene. And you know how to get a hold of me. My email is jimcornette@jimcornette.com, or elsewise, you know
What's
how to
up,
get a hold of
Shell?
Nolan, obviously. He has my phone number. Your best friend and Christian buddy, Terry Taylor, he's got my phone number. I'm not going to be hard for you to contact, Vince. You don't even have to talk to me.
Man, I swear I'm gonna fuck you up now, bro.
Or send me the email. But here's the rules. No cops, no guns, and no knives, and we both come alone. And what happens, happens. Nobody makes a dime off of it.
I swear, now I'm gonna fuck you up.
Nobody's ever going to know that it's even going to happen.
Now you done
Until
fucked
after it
up.
happens when nobody hears from you anymore. And because you're broke and you're unemployed and you probably don't know where your next fucking meal is coming from and you can't provide for your family, and that must, I bet you can't even get your dick hard anymore, Vince, because you can't provide for your family and you don't feel like a man because you're one of those Christian lunatics that thinks Hillary Clinton shouldn't have been president because woman was made from man's rib. So it must really give you erectile dysfunction, you fucking piece of shit, that you can't provide for your family and you're a failure and you're a laughing stock. So, not only will I come to you, not only will I meet you in a neutral location with no cops, no guns, no knives, just the two of us, but I'm going to have $5,000 in cash with me because I got that, Vince, unlike you. You don't have to bring anything. You don't even have to bring a ham sandwich. I'm going to have $5,000 in cash with me, and you can have it if you can take it away from me. So what do I got to do? You fucking
Keep
fraud,
doing it,
you
man.
gutless
Keep
coward. Do I have
doing
to
it.
call your wife a crack whore? Do I have to say your mother sucked dicks for dimes and dive bars? Do I have to tell you that your father gave government secrets to the Nazis? Just let me know, Vince. Let this gutless coward right here know where I gotta fucking meet you. Time, date, and address. And I'm bringing $5,000. And all you gotta do is take it away from me. But there ain't gonna be no talking. There ain't gonna be no debating. I'm gonna do what the fuck I wanted to do almost since the first day I met your miserable ass. And you know it's true. You know it's
Fuck.
true because you've talked to Ballin.
Good
And he knows
match.
exactly
Good
what
match.
I want to do to you, and he exactly how bad I hate you. And I'm not saying I'm a badass. I'm not saying I can whip Chael Sonnen. I'm not even saying I can whip a grown adult man, because I'm old, I got a lot of energies. But you've never been in a fight, gutless pussy. I can whip you. Besides, it's not even going to be hand-to-hand, because I said no guns, no knives. But I got a bat. I can find a stick. I don't give a fuck. I've wanted to do this for a long time. So if you want to make challenges about going on people's podcasts and giving the money to charity and all this other stuff, because you know that ain't going to happen, because we got nothing to talk about. But I'm making you a legitimate offer. I swear on my mother's grave, if you give me a date, a time, and an address, I will meet you there, and I will bring $5,000 in cash, as long as the rules are no cops, no guns, and no knives. And what happens, happens. And if you don't fucking take me up on that, you piece of shit, then shut your fucking dick licker from now on. Because I'm sick and fucking fed up with you, and everybody else is too. You've been found out. Nobody believes in you anymore. Everybody knows what you're all about. You've stabbed everybody in the back you've ever worked with. You've killed guys' careers with your goofy gimmicks. You've made the wrestling business a fucking joke with your fucking ADD goddamn booking and your Jerry Springer show horse shit. And most of all, you're a piece of fucking shit, and I will prove it. Send me the date, the time, and the place, or shut the fuck up. We gotta close the show, and I've gotta say this, and I haven't wanted to say this, and I've tried to put it off. We got nothing else to talk about today but this, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get it over with. Vince Russo has defeated me, scorched me. I'm here to admit it. I'm a beaten man. Vince Russo is the winner of this thing. Because last week, everybody knows, it made a lot of news. I came out and I made a challenge. Since he had talked about wanting to meet me face-to-face on his show or on my show or on a neutral show, face-to-face, man-to-man, I offered to meet him, place of his choosing, just not for public consumption. No fans, no tickets being sold, no profit being made off of it, no cops, no guns, no knives. What happens, happens. And a large cash amount that I would have with me for him to show up if he could take it away from me. And I said horrible things. And that probably, I said every horrible thing about another human being and his family that I could think of to say. And imagine how much territory that takes him. And he responded. He responded to all of that as any true man would, defending his honor and the honor of his wife and his family with a blistering comedy routine. He showed me the error of my ways. He blistered me with one-liners straight out of the fucking hitting. He showed me the difference in how to handle it. Fucked with me that bad and said horrible things. Fucked with my business and insulted my wife and said things about her on my answer machine. I took a basic to two of the guy's stooges, and then I tried to pull that guy over with my car in broad daylight on the busiest street in Knoxville. That story's been told many times. But Vince Russo showed me how I should respond to something like that. He responded with shtick. But not just any shtick. No, it was shtick for the ages. It was shtick that would have made any Borscht Belt comic working a senior citizen's home in the Catskills proud. Jackie Mason, Norm Crosby, they could not touch this fucking guy, and I am suitably chastened. I hope I remember everything that I want to say, because I don't have Vince Russo's massive writing talent, the ability to sit down for a couple of days with a dictionary and maybe watch some old B movies and write down some really good insults and then read them verbatim off a piece of paper. I've got to fight Vince Russo's encyclopedic vocabulary and his incredible wide-ranging knowledge of old comedy lines with his. I always thought misconstrued.
There we go.
It was just a joke between me and Starmaker Bowling. I didn't know it's actually how you pronounce that word, but now I.
You got a match, dude. Fuck
sorry,
yeah.
I missed that day in class, but.
All right, level 22,
all I
huh?
have to rely on here, folks, is my ability to actually cut a promo and speak extemporaneously off the top of my head from my heart, because I really mean this stuff, as opposed to what Vince does, which was sit down, dictionary, maybe his stooge co-host on another show to help him, and really write down some FIFO material that would have got him over in any comedy club in a bottom 50 market in the United States. But before I make this apology and admit this defeat, I do have to correct Vinny Rue on one thing. There was one thing that he was slightly, and I know he deals with so many people and he gets so many threats and he has so many people that say things on his answer machine or on shows or to his face that he may have forgotten the specific details of this, so it's not his fault. He didn't mean to tell a blatant lie. He just did it accidentally. But he said that his 5-year-old son heard when I called up and left a message on his answer machine where I threatened the lives of his wife and his children. And that's... I admit I did call him up and threaten his life. I've done that many times. But what happened was, back in the year 2000... It was the year after that he had left the WWF. People that Vince McMahon, the guy that gave him, the biggest paying job he'd ever had, and got him into wrestling on a mainstream basis, and he left him with no notice, just a phone call, even though the TV taping was 50 miles from his house, and he could have come down and shake Vince's hand. He didn't want to make a big deal out of it, because it was, Vince didn't want to steal the attention away from the TV taping that night, so he left under cover of darkness with a mere phone call, no notice. But about 9 months later, Kevin Kelly and Bruce Pritchard came down to OVW and visited me, checking out the developmental program, and I was taking them to the airport so they could fly back that night after the OVW taping, and they mentioned how that the previous Monday they had been down in Atlanta for the first time in a long time. They'd done a Raw taping down there, and because Bruce Pritchard and Kevin Kelly were always really friendly with Vince Russo, that they'd been over to each other's houses and their wives talked, and they hadn't had the heat that I'd had with Vinny Rue. And they had called him while they were down in Atlanta and wanted to see if they might want to get together, just shoot shit about old times, and he ignored their call, didn't call them back, and they kind of, they felt, bad, disappointed about that, I guess. They thought they were friends, and I happened to mention, I said, I think my exact quote was, "You got that motherfucker's number?" So Bruce Pritchard handed me his phone and pressed the button so that I could call Vince Russo, because I had some things I wanted to say to him at the time, because when I'd left and come down to Louisville, he was still working for the company, and even though I had told Jim Ross before I left, I said, when I head to Louisville, my last day here, I'm going to hospitalize Vince Russo, and JR had talked me out of it. He said, "No, just screw up the developmental program. Please don't do that." I said, "All right." JR, I respect and admire. I did him a favor. But I had never got a chance to tell Vince Russo what I thought of him, and now that he was working for another company, I didn't feel the professional need to be professional. So I got that phone in my hand, and Vince Russo answered the phone, and I said, "Vince." And he said, "Yeah?" And I said, "It's Jim Cornette." I said, "Well, I said a lot of things, like I just want to tell you what a fucking piece of shit, prick you were. I always thought you were, and how you cut my nuts off, and you stabbed other people in the back, and I fucking hate you, and I want to kill you." Of course, he hung up on me. So I called back, and I got his voicemail, and I left that voicemail message where I talked about what all I'd like to do to him and at the time, and that if he had anything to say to me, I gave him my phone number, which I'm not going to give out here, but it was my legitimate phone number, and I handed Bruce his phone back. And I never heard from Vince at the time, and actually Bruce and Kevin never heard back from him either, but who did hear from him was Vince called the next day or day or two later, called the WWF Human Resources Department and reported that Bruce Pritchard and his cohort Kevin Kelly had put me up to some way to calling him and leaving him a nasty message and used their phone. And also that's when he mentioned, and of course, like I said, this was an innocent, he didn't mean to lie, it was an innocent mistake. He just told him, he misunderstood me with somebody else, and he told the Human Resources Department at the WWF that I'd also threatened to kill his wife and his children, which was not true. And believe me, obviously after all I've said, I would admit that too, but he wanted to get Bruce and Kevin fired, his friends, because, you know, they loaned me that phone, so it was obviously their fault. And luckily, you know, for Bruce and Kevin, because they had families to support and they had jobs, the Human Resources Department did not take that action, although Bruce did call me and said, please, don't ever call this guy anymore because it was terrible for us. So I didn't. But otherwise, everything else that he said, you know, in the reply that he made to my challenge last week was true. He said I was a mark because I blew my knee coming off the scaffold because I didn't know how to take a bump, and that's true because on the day that they taught scaffold bumps in the wrestling school that I didn't go to because they didn't have any then, I did play hooky that day, but I've watched some tapes of Vince's work in the ring, and now I do know how to take a bump, because where I made my mistake was after I blew my knee coming off that 25-foot scaffold and I had that knee surgery, and I had all that blood drained off my knee and I had everything cleaned up. I never got it fixed, actually. It's still to this day I don't have an ACL in that knee because I couldn't take that much time off of work because the Midnight Express needed me. But I had the surgery and got it all cleaned out. I took 10 days off and I came back on the road on crutches to fulfill my bookings to make sure that the fans weren't disappointed and because the Midnight Express needed me. But now I know better. I know better because Vince Russo, after the first and only bump that he ever took in his life down in WCW, he was such a great worker that he claimed that he had a severe concussion, that he had brain damage, which actually may explain some things, and to make sure that he didn't, although a guy like Vince Russo with his upstanding principles, he wouldn't have sued the company, but to make sure, for some reason, WCW thought he was going to sue him. So to make sure that he didn't sue the company, WCW let him sit home for months and collect his check in the mailbox until he felt up to coming back to work. Now that's the way that a man handles things in wrestling. And I gotta tell you, I realized I don't want to fight Vince Russo anyway now because I just got a chance. Somebody showed me his WCW promo picture, his publicity picture, where he's standing there and he's got this sleek black baseball bat in his hands and he's dressed all in black leather and he's got that beard stubble coming out because he hadn't shaved in 3 or 4 days. He just looked like that badass lead singer in Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and nobody wanted to mess with that guy. So I didn't realize, you know, I just saw Vince in his off time. I didn't realize when he really, you know, got shit together that he was such an intimidating figure. And that's why I asked to fight him, because I didn't realize he was such a badass. And as far as fighting experience, I thought I was doing pretty good, but I guess I'm outgunned, you know, there too, because, you know, I've only had about 15 assault arrests for defending myself against pissed off fans that attacked me in arenas, and been in about a dozen lawsuits, a bunch of riots, and most of them that I started because the fans were so pissed off at me because I didn't know how to work. But Vince Russo, he even said in his book that he has never been in a fight in his life. And you know why I figured this out? I now know why, because people hear that Brooklyn accent and the word bro coming out of his mouth, and they just know right off the bat he's a badass. And they don't even want to try him. So he's won every fight by default because he's so intimidating. And as a matter of fact, in wrestling, if you would talk about worked fighting, in wrestling, the only wrestling match that Vince ever had, the only match he ever had, he won the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, and people still remember that glorious moment today. Whereas, as me, you know, people remember I've had hundreds of wrestling matches. I've had my cheek busted open down to the bone, took 15 stitches. I blew the other knee, my left knee, not the one on the scaffold. I've had a couple of hernia surgeries. I've had my knee scoped more than once. I've had physical therapy on my hip. You know, I've had hundreds of matches, but the only couple that I ever won were by complete and utter flukes, just totally by accident, because somebody else cheated and interfered and I capitalized on it. And I'll tell you what, when the rematches came about, those sellout crowds in those arenas, they saw me get my ass whipped royally. because I couldn't whip nothing. But see, nobody ever bought a ticket to see Vince Russo wrestle because they knew there was no chance that a New York badass like him was ever going to get beat, so why bother watching it? You know, and so as far as fight, I don't want to fight Vince Russo because after all, he's a former world champion. But as far as personally, I said some strong things personally that I regret because it probably offended a group of friends at Vince Russo. You know, they say that the measure of a man
Hey, where'd you go? Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. All right. All right. I don't know. I don't know. I have been. I've been sleeping. Yeah. All right. I'll see you later. All right, bye. Yeah.
Is how many friends he's got. And well, everybody knows I've got a lot of friends. They're probably fair weather friends, but you know, they've been on this show. I've been on their shows. We do videos with each other because they're not really, I guess what you call, threatened by me. I'm not anybody that would take their job because I'm not qualified or capable of doing that. And so that's why they like me. But Vince, now Vince Russo, going back to the person who got Vince Russo in wrestling, John Arezzi, he's been on this show, told the story right up until today. Very few people will say or admit that they're Vince Russo's friend because his greatness makes them jealous. They even make up stories just out of whole cloth about how he screwed him over or stabbed him in the back, all because they're so jealous of his great success. And they're terrible people. They're terrible people, all of them. To say those things, every single person that Vince Russo's ever really worked with on a close basis practically says these things, and they're just all terrible people. But you want to talk about success in the wrestling business, that's what makes them all jealous. Well, but boy howdy, as JR would say. Vince had that big run booking the WWF for 2 years, about 20 years ago, and nobody's been able to follow that since. As a matter of fact, a lot of people have said after Vince Russo's run booking the WWF, it's a miracle that they ever sold one more ticket after that. And as a matter of fact, Vince McMahon recognizes that. Because Vince McMahon wants Vince Russo back there in the WWF so bad, that he paid me a large sum of money to come back to that company after 12 years of saying horrible things about him. And he put me on his TV, on his big network worldwide, and you know, put me together with Eric Bischoff, another guy who has said some horrible things about Vince McMahon, but he put Eric on the show too, worldwide, just to talk about what a pleasure Vince Russo was to work with. Because that's why he was trying to entice Russo to come on back and do some more of whatever it was that he did. Vince set more records in wrestling. I don't think he was with WCW for more than a year before they set a record. They lost more money in 1 year that Vince Russo was with them than every wrestling promotion that has ever been in existence in the 20th century, all combined, put together. More money. Think about how much money that is. That is an amazing amount of money. And Vince Russo did something else that nobody's ever done. When a TV network, Spike TV, actually canceled the show that he was the secret writer of when they found out about it. Because he was making all of their